I would like to start this conversation, first of all, by saying I am not a religious man. 2, this is not a religious channel. 3, this is not a religious conversation. If you come in the scope or mental understanding of Christianity and you listen to the contents of this video, it is highly likely that you will leave offended and probably be one of the people who push the little down arrow on the video. And understand, I nor truth gives a damn. Lock in, let's rock. The Bible is not a religious book. I understand that it has been used by religion. It has been tampered with by religion. It has been cast into the agenda of the religious world and used to control the paradigms and precepts and common misconceptions of many nations. Not just your nation, many nations. Understand, there was a conquest. The conquest did not include bloody swords. They came yielding a book, and it's a book that you now clutch very, very tightly and hold sacred. You should do your research, not on whether God is real or God is not, because that is obvious inside of every day that we live, breathing Christological air. Duh. You should examine those who exposed you to theology, the study of God, and told you that there were books and other people and other places to look when the kingdom of God is within you. The kingdom of love is you. If you want to know who God is, if you want to study God, if you really want to get into theology, you would stop going to that place at the end of the street that want 10% of your money and all of your time on Sunday and a little bit of your assistance after church to do the things that they need hands and feet and heartbeats to accomplish. And you'll sit down in a room alone, comfortably alone, voluntarily alone, not complaining that you're alone, not looking for someone to override your loneliness. Nah, by choice, sitting still in meditation so that the truth can be revealed and override all that you have assumed to be true, because it is what you have calculated from what you have observed with your eyeballs. Y'all know I like to say eyeballs. I want to look at a story in the Bible today. We're reading out of the Bishop's Bible. The Bishop's Bible is from like 1585, before the authorized copy of King James, which there was no J in 1611. So it couldn't have been a King James version, because just like in 1585, many of the alphabetical characters that we are familiar with inside of the English language had not been established yet. And in 1611, J still had yet to be established. That book is referred to in actuality as the King James version, because it tames kings, duh. Again, nothing wrong with the book, nothing wrong with reading it if you know how to read it. But if you don't, you're gonna wind up domesticated when you were born for freedom. Freedom in a holy wilderness, in a field of discovery, however you want to put it, in a land of wonder. You know, you like fairy tales and you like science fiction stories. What's crazy is your promise is greater than any science fiction novel or movie that there is. You've been given all power from the one who has all power. You've been told you can call anything that you desire to yourself, and if it doesn't come, it's not because the answer was no, but it's because you asked amiss, or You didn't ask. Man, how is it that we find ourselves in such weird predicaments and such tight places when we are given such an universal, abundant gift before we were ever established in the flesh? Could it be that our partnership with the flesh has come with an ignorance that has caused us to abandon the promise and search for something that we think is better? Could it be that our ignorance of the promise and how good it actually is and what it contains has caused us to turn our head from it in disgust, repulsion, not understanding what it is, and to go seek for something alternative? There's nothing else. So let's look at the story of Job real quick, and let's find ourselves in the not religious story of Job, the metaphysical story of Job, the mythological story of Job. Like I say, 1585, so I got to be a little slow reading this because I have to convert like use to like that substance is spelled substaunce. Just got to feel your way through it. In the land of Hus, there was a man whose name was, we know him to be Job, but in the Bishop's Bible, his name is I-O-B. I don't even know how to say that because the J doesn't exist yet. We just talked about that. And the same was a perfect and just man. Just is spelled I-U-S-T because the J don't exist yet, and it's 1585. Not too long from 1611 when it still doesn't exist, when you say you got the King James Version, but you got the King James Version. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that he was one of the most principal men among all of them in the east. And his sons went and banqueted in their houses, every one his day, and sent for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of their banqueting were gone about, Job sent and sanctified them, and got up early, and offered for everyone a burnt offering. For Job said, it may be that my sons have done some offense and have been unthankful to God in their hearts. Thus did Job every day. That's the part that I don't remember from the story as a child. I don't remember it including the information that Job provided that sacrifice on behalf of his children, who he operated in fear for every day. So every day Job was waking up conscious of a fear that his children might have offended a God who loved them unconditionally and caused for a wrath to come down upon them. That was a figment of Job's imagination and did not belong to God at all. And this is the way we use our thinking capacity. We, being ignorant to fact, being ignorant to the identity of God and what that means for us, ignorant to our identity and what that means to God, get it in our head, all of these silly concepts that we bow and submit to as though we are bowing and submitting to God. God ain't had nothing to do with Job's burnt sacrifice. God had nothing to do with Job's fear that his children might have offended him overnight. This was Job's fear for his children. And Job had that fear out of his fear of God acting in a way that was brash yet corrective, necessary but detrimental towards people that he had attachment to. You would say that Job loved his kids. I cannot say that as a student because we are reading in this mythological story that Job operated in fear for his children. If he would have been loving his children, he would not have had the fear for them. He would have been able to see their identity the way God sees their identity, embrace them in whatever mistakes they make, and understand that the Father that he serves, the heavenly deity that is on the inside of him, that is his source and his supply, would not allow for him to run dry or allow for his kids to run dry either, because they had done something that he found offensive. He's not an emotional being. He's not like us. He doesn't have emotional maturity issues. He's not an EBD student. He's not a recovering narcissist who's trying to pretend like the things that shouldn't bother him isn't bothering him. They don't bother him. But Job was wrapped up in his fear. We can observe that in the text. We don't have to do any adding or subtracting away from the story. We can see clearly that Job operated on a daily basis out of fear that his children might have offended his unstably emotional driven imaginative God. And upon a day when the children of God came and stood before the Lord, Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Satan answered the Lord and said, From compassing the earth to and fro, and from walking through it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou not considered my servant Job, how there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and a just man, one that feareth God, and one that hates evil? Satan answered and said unto the Lord, Doth Job fear God for naught? Job fear God for nothing? Hast thou not preserved him in his house, and all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions is increased in the land. But lay thine hand now upon him, and touch all that he hath, and he shall curse thee to thy face. Ooh, I can't wait to go back to that. And the Lord said unto Satan, Lo, all that he hath be in thy power. Only upon himself see that thou lay not thine hand. And Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. I got to read that verse again because I ain't even catch that in this old text. And the Lord said unto Satan, Lo, all that he hath be in thy power. Ooh, only upon himself see that thou not lay thine hand. And Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. Ooh, we finna eat that up. So check this out. We're familiar with this story, but we have a slightly tailored version that we grew up on and that was peddled to us in Sunday school and preached to us in pulpits. Satan is said to be amongst the children of God as they come and stand before the Lord one day. So the children of God came and stood before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Satan answered the Lord and said, From compassing the earth to and fro, and from walking through it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou not considered my servant Job, how there is none like him on earth, a perfect and just man, one that feareth God and hates evil? And Satan says unto the Lord, Does Job fear God for no reason? Hast thou not preserved him in his house, and all that he have on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions increased in the land. And then Satan says in the narrative of Job, But lay thine hand now upon him, and touch all that he hath, and he shall curse thee to thy face. You do see in the text, Job 1:11, Satan, the character of Satan, seems to be completely aware that he does not have the ability to touch anything. The conversation, the mythological conversation between the character projecting or portraying source, God, and Satan. Satan is aware that the only way Job's stuff can get bothered with is if God, the same one who gave it, puts his hand back on it and takes it away. That's not what religion be peddling, though. That's not what you've been told. That's not what you've been taught. That's not what you believe. That's not what you promote. And that's why I can't rock with what you be saying. Because you have this impression that God has power to give and Satan has power to take away. And you even mangle this power with disloyalty. Your God, who would allow for his enemy to walk in his presence and offer up his son to the attack from his enemy, is disloyal. That's not love. That's not holy. That's not having one way of operating and dealing with me. That's sacrificing me to prove a point to your enemy. Listen, we got this all messed up. Understand, this whole narrative symbolizes something that takes place on the inside of all of us. The presence of I Am is always with you, no matter where you go, no matter whether you talk to him, no matter whether you listen to him, no matter whether you've been trained to acknowledge his voice, no matter whether you pray when you eat your food. It doesn't matter. I Am is always with you no matter where you go. You make your bed in Hades, there I Am is with you as well. It doesn't matter. Satan, the only devil, the only accuser, the only enemy that is genuine and real is that part of you that you allowed to make you question everything that you know and everything that is being deposited within you on a daily basis to bring you clarity, wisdom, knowledge, understanding. The accuser is within you. God is within you. This interaction took place within Job, not within the book of Job, within the character of Job. So Job is inside of the experience, inside of the metaphysical, inside of the mental state of fear. Fear can only produce illusions and more fear. So Job goes every day to make this burnt offering sacrifice on behalf of his kids, just in case they offended God, so that God would see his sacrifice and his kids would be covered and spared by his sacrifice rather than God's understanding, love, kindness, and gentle nature. It's not that Job seen his kids wrong. It's Job had a misperception of God. Job didn't understand that the Father really is good, just like you don't understand that. And that's why you be keeping up with all of your little wrongdoings, all of the wrongdoings that the word says that God cast in the sea of forgetfulness. You be keeping up with and keeping tabs with and trying to keep a running log to see if you deserve to get into this place that they got mansions and gold streets and worship music playing in the courtyard 24/7. That's tough. But the conversation takes place on the inside of Job, the character of Job. Satan tells God, hey, you have blessed him at every angle. You've blessed his works. You've blessed the hands. You've blessed his possessions. You've increased him. You've preserved his house. Now, put your hand back on him. Take everything that he have, and I bet you he'll curse you to your face. And the Lord said unto Satan, lo, all that he hath be in thy power. I'm going to give you power over what he has. Because everything that he has, He has because he called it to himself by the same imagination that he uses every day to see God as this weird father and source who may withhold from him or his children goodness if they are not good as well. Hey, whatever he got, you can touch it, but don't you put your hands on him, because he belonged to me. I am only concerned with him. You do understand that the things that you have, the places you go, the things you decide to obtain is not an issue for Source. Source could care less. Source is only concerned with what is real. And what is real is what is eternal. And what is eternal is you and I. All right? So, don't you touch him. And Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. And upon a certain day, when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them. And the Sabees came violently and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the swords, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven, and have burnt up the sheep and servants, and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And while he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the Chaldees made out their bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away. Yea, and they slain the servants with the sword, and I only am gotten away alone to tell thee. And while he was yet speaking, there came another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a mighty great wind from beyond the wilderness, and smote the four corners of the house, which fell upon thy children, and they are dead. And I am gotten away alone to tell thee. Then Job stood up and rent his clothes, and shaved his head, fell down upon the ground and worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I turn there again. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all these things did Job not offend, nor charge God foolishly. If they would have left the narrative alone, I think it would have been more obvious to us what we were supposed to see when we looked at the story, the mythological narrative of Job. He's talking to one of the servants that survived a catastrophe, and there's a loss inside of the catastrophe. He gives the servant who survived his attention. They tell him of the loss that he has suffered. He gives his attention to that servant who tells him that they're the only one that survived. As he gives them his attention, there's another servant who presents himself and gives the same exact account of more of the same in a different area. So, and this happens countless times, like 4, 5, 6 times, leading all the way up to the death of his children. So when you get to the death of his children, he stands up, rips his clothes, shaves his head, fall down on the ground, worships, and he says, naked I came out of my mother's womb, naked shall I return there again. Lord gave, Lord took away, blessed is the name of the Lord. He didn't blame the devil, he put it on the Lord, which it was the Lord, because Satan even said that in the scripture of the conversation that took place on the inside of Job. So Job was in alignment with what took place. But again, what are we supposed to take from this story? What are we supposed to, because this is not a realistic depiction of the way bad news unrolls for us. Now, it's the way we pretend it unrolls. When it rains, it pours. And, one thing after another. This is the way we talk because we use our attention the same way Job did. We give attention to a loss. Inside of giving our attention to a loss, we receive more loss, more fear, more loss, more illusions. That's the same thing Job got. Job was losing things that could be lost. And if it could be lost, if it could die, if it could be taken away, then it does not exist in reality, in fact, right? You cannot die. Somebody walk up right now and do something where your container is no longer functional. It is no longer in operation, in existence, on this earth, in the physical plane. You didn't die. You are not your body. Something that you say you know, but then something that you forget. Every day you walk out your door and you be trying to keep people from hurting you so that you don't die. Yeah, the paradox of being human, for real. But he gives his attention to a loss. In giving his attention to a loss, he receives more loss. And that is true for Job, and that is true for you, and that has been true for me, and that is what we are outgrowing. So when somebody said to me the other day, when my brother said to me, man, I feel like we're living out the story of Job, it slapped me like a ton of bricks because I knew that he was accurate, but I knew that there was something that he did not say that was just as factual. We have never lived out the rest of the story. This is the part that we live. We live the part that we're familiar with. We live the part of the loss and attention to loss, leading to more loss. That's where we've been living. We've been turning circles in the first chapter of this experience of Job. Job 2. And on a day, the children of God came and stood before the Lord, and Satan came along among thee and stood before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? Satan answered the Lord and said, I have gone about the land, walked throughout it. And the Lord said unto Satan, I'm reading like this because it's spelled so weird. Now don't be picking on me. It don't matter if you do. I don't really care, but you be reading it the same. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou not considered my servant Job? How there is none like him on the earth, perfect and just man, one that feareth God, hates evil, and continueth still in his uprightness. Although thou moved me against him, to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Yeah, a man will give all that ever he hath for his life. But lay thine hand now upon him, and touch once his bone and his flesh, and he shall curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, lo, he is in thy hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils, from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took a potsherd to scrape him, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto he, doeth thou continue yet in thy perfectness? Curse God and die. But he said unto her, thou speakest like a foolish woman. Shall we receive good at the hand of God and not receive evil? In all these things did not Job sin with his lips? That's dope. They should have left that in the text. Because I would have loved for one of these pastors to have built the sermon around sinning with your lips. Missing the mark with your mouth. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all the trouble that had came upon him, they came everyone fro his own place. And it's some names that I'm not even finna butcher. For they were agreed together to come to show their compassion upon him and to comfort him. So when they lift up their eyes afar off, they knew him not. The man was messed up. They ain't even know their friend. Couldn't recognize him. Then they cried and wept, and every one of them rent their clothes and sprinkled dust upon their heads. Job chapter 3, right? After this, opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job answered and said, Let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, There is a man child conceived, the same day be turned to darkness, and not regarded of God from above, neither let the light shine upon it, but let it be stained with darkness, and the shadow of death. Let the dim cloud fall upon it, which may make it terrible as a most bitter day. Let the dark storm overcome that night, and let it not be joined unto the days of the year, nor counted in the number of the months. Job is talking wild. But don't act like that. Don't act like you don't get emotional like this. Don't act like you don't. Stop acting like it don't be the smallest of things. It don't be the most temporary of things. Don't act like you ain't acted and said things like this about somebody you was partnered with 4-5 people ago. You done found 4-5 replacements that almost replaced them, and you was talking like this at one time over that same. All right, now, don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. Desolate be that night, and without gladness. Let them that curse the day, and that be ready to raise up mourning, give it also their curse. Let the stars of that night be dim through darkness of it. Let it look for light, but have none. Neither let it see the dawning of the day, because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb, nor had sorrow from my eyes. All the man was saying in a very, very poetic and sophisticated way is that day that caused for me to exist in the physical, I want you to remove that day from the calendar. I want you to strike it from history. I want it gone. And when we get emotional like this, we don't take into consideration how other people are affected by our emotional outbursts, because the day that Job was born, I'm pretty sure there were a host of other people who probably would have been pissed off if they knew what the mythological story character Job was signing them up for. Because he was signing up not only himself to never exist, but for that whole day to never exist, which would have caused for anybody born on that day to be wiped out of existence. And that's crazy. But again, don't act like you don't get like that about how you feel and how far you're willing to take it. Alas, why died I not in birth? Why did not I perish as soon as I came out of my mother's womb? Why set thy me upon their knees? Why gave thee me suck their breasts? Then should I now have lain still, I should have slept and been at rest. Like as the kings and lords of the earth, which have builded themselves special places, or as the princes that have had gold and their houses full of silver, or why was not I had as a thing born out of tomb, either as young children which never saw the light? There must the wicked cease from their tyranny, and there such a labored valiant be at rest. It's getting tough. I'm telling you, ain't nothing spelled right to us. But it was the way they were spelling things back then. There the prisoners rest together. They hear no more the voice of the oppressor. There are small and great, and the servant is free from his master. Wherefore is the light given to him that is in misery, and life unto them that have had hearts, which long for death and find it not, though they search more for it than for treasures. Ooh. Would you argue that you search more for death than you have for treasures? Because I wouldn't. Because I'm a student. And I'm an honest student. I'm an unbiased student. I can truthfully assess myself. And I have way more experience longing for death and finding it not. Even though I search for death more than I search for treasures, which rejoice exceedingly and be glad when they can find the grave. You be so happy when you partner with that person that stress you out and take you away from yourself, pull you away from your purpose, your identity, stress levels through the roof. But you're happy. That's what you wanted. You got what you wanted, right? No, you never get what you imagined. You got what you begged for. And then you became aware that what you begged for was nothing like you imagined. And then you wish that that person left you alone. Been there, done that, got that whole t-shirt collection. You feel me? From whom their ends are had and concealed by God. For my sighs come before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the water. For the thing that I feared is come upon me. You run to what you run from. That's what we were supposed to see inside of this part of the metaphysical presentation of the mythological story and character of Job. The thing that I feared has come upon me. That thing that I used to see in my head and feel in my heart has combined and called to me everything I did not want and was trying to stop from happening. But had I just relied on the faithfulness of Source, I wouldn't have had to even go through this. But I had to go through this so that I could understand that I was not made for fear. I was not made for illusions. I was not made for loss and giving my attention to loss. I needed to go through this so the next time somebody came to me with the presentation of loss, I knew how to use the truth to set myself free from the chain of reaction or reactions of getting entangled with the illusion of loss. I needed this. You needed them to do you like they did you, so that you can grow out of the attachment of needing them around, so that you could get back to the recovery of self, so that you can actually go and connect and love your children and your relatives and those who you want to extend yourself to. Come on now. For the thing that I feared is come upon me, and the thing that I was afraid of is happened unto me. Was I not happy? Had I not quietness? Was I not in rest? And now cometh such misery upon me. He just said, just like we do, he was in fear. He was afraid. And then he turns around and acts like he doesn't know. And he say, was I not happy? Was I not in quietness? Was I not in rest? Why did such misery come to me? Such misery came to me because inside of what I was calling rest, happiness, and quietness, I was afraid and operating out of fear every day. Job 4. And Eliphaz and Themanite answered and said, it was a say to come with thee. Wilt thou be discontent? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, thou hast been an instructor of many, and hast strengthened the weary hands. The words have set up him that was fallen. Thou hast refreshed the weak knees. But now it is come upon thee, and thou art grieved. It toucheth thee, and thou art troubled. Was not thy fear according to thy hope, and the perfectness of thy ways according to thy expectation? They should have left the text alone. But it wouldn't have tamed the kings. It would have stood the kings up. And there would not have been a domesticated, sleeping mass to be governed and directed by more fear and more lies. Job homeboy tell him, man, look, you was an instructor for many. You strengthened the weak hands. You stood up those who were fallen. You refreshed the weak knees. But now that this come upon you, you're grieved. It's touched thee and you troubled. Was it not thy fear was not your fear according to your hope? What you fear leads to you hoping for something, and you only hope for what you don't have. And if your attention is on what you don't have, your attention must be on an illusion, because you have been given all things. All things include all things that are real. All things that are real have to be good because they were provided by a good creator. A good creator cannot make bad things. That would mean that the creator is impartial or split or some type of incomplete. But we have settled already on the conclusion that the creator is whole, the creator is perfect, the creator makes no mistakes, the creator is holy. So, with that being said, everything that extends itself from the creator must be an extension of the creator's goodness, or you have to strike the creator being all good from the factualist. And I think it belongs there. Beyond think, I know it belongs there. Like, was not your fear according to thy hope? You thought you was running away from something, and you had hoped that you could do something to keep it from coming. But that whole equation just led to you experiencing all of what you were trying to get away from. So that you can see that you was bigger and better than that too. That ain't the first thing that you thought was going to kill you and take you away. Consider, I pray thee, whoever perished, being an innocent, or when were the godly destroyed? For as I have proved by experience, they that plow iniquity and sow wretchedness reap the same. With the blast of God they perish, with the breath of their nostrils are they consumed, with the breath of his nostrils are they consumed away. The roaring of the lion and the voice of the lion and the teeth of the lion, whelps are pulled out. But whereas a thing was hid from me, yet mine care have recalled a little of thereof. In the thoughts and visions of the night, when sleep cometh on men, fear came upon me, and dread, which made all my bones shake. The wind passed by before my presence, and made the hairs, it's a hairs, Heers, the hairs of my flesh to stand up. He stood thereon, and I knew not his face. An image there was before mine eyes, and in the stillness heard I a voice. Shall man be more just than God? Or shall a man be purer than his maker? Behold, he found not true in his servants, and his angels there was folly. How much more in them that dwell in houses of clay? Oh, that just hit. I gotta run that back. Check that out now. Behold, he found not truth in his servants. God, now. I'm gonna run back another verse. Listen, fear came upon me in dread, which made all of my bones shake. The wind passed by before my presence, and made the hairs of my flesh to stand up. He stood thereon, and I knew not his face. An image there was before mine eyes, and in the stillness heard I a voice. Shall man be more just than God? Or shall a man be purer than his maker? I am speaking. Behold, He found not truth in his servants, and in his angels there was folly. It was foolishness. They was playing games. The angels and the servants were found to be imperfect, right? How much more in them that dwell in houses of clay, and whose foundation is but dust, which shall be consumed as it were with a moth. They shall be smitten from the morning until evening. Yeah, they shall perish forever, when no man regardeth them. Is not their royalty gone away with them? They shall die truly, and not in wisdom. Listen, I'm not going to go through the rest of the text. You can read it on your own. But understand, I wanted to show you the process of fear, loss, attention to loss, more loss, and the will that we get stuck inside of until there is a coming to, until there is a moment, just like the prodigal son in scripture is said to have come to himself and realized that even those who served in the lowest of positions in his father's house were eating better and living better than him in the pigsty in his mythological story that represented a foreign territory outside of truth, outside of the father and son relationship that you have been provided by free inheritance, right? I wanted to show it to you. I wanted to show you that this coming to moment is the moment that our attention is taken away from loss and taken away from fear and placed back on truth, which redirects and repaths the energy and the current running towards us, and therefore we change what it is that we're calling to ourselves, and we change what we are experiencing. But if we are not willing to go through the process of taking our attention away from the things that we think have been taken away from us, the things that we think we've lost, the things that we think we can never get back, we will never end the habitual pattern of loss. I know you're ready to win. Only losers talk about that one time that they won. Winners wake up and win again. We don't have to rely on our record from the past. Set me up for my next goal so I can catch my next dub. It's time to redirect your attention. It's time to settle back in on truth. It's time to take your attention off of loss, take your attention off of fear. It's time to stop operating from fear, because it only leads to you going into places that you eventually want to save yourself from, call out to others to save you, and find them insufficient, because the place that it is completely illusionary and only real and has hardened into fact for you. Lock in.